Welcome to Hack Your Health with Dr. Nat, a transformative live stream TV show that brings wellness within everyone's reach. Each episode, featuring expert guests, delves into crucial topics like hormonal health, effective detoxification, and stress management through nervous system optimization. Gain practical insights into nutrition, supplementation, efficient workouts, and biohacking tools to enhance mental and physical health. So now, please welcome the host of Hack Your Health, Dr. Nat.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show Hack Your Health with Dr. Nat. I am your host, Dr. Nathalie Beauchamp. I'm super excited today to dive into a topic called Feed Your Brain, Optimizing Mental Wellness Through Nutrition. We are going to talk about how food impacts our brain, our mood, and cognition, how the gut and brain are connected when it comes to brain health. And we're going to talk about key nutrients and strategies to boost our brain at any age. And to do so, I have a guest. Her name is Julie Gervais. Hi, Julie. How are you?
Good. Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm excited. So I'll read your short bio here, Julie. Julie is a registered holistic nutritionist and a brain health coach and the creator of the online program, The Happiness Reset Adventure. Just love the title, Julie, where she takes many of her clients through a journey of brain healthy habit needed for a healthy brain and a happy life. Her philosophy, if our brains work right, we work right. And this reflects her belief in the power of nutrient-dense food to enhance health, happiness, and success in life, really, Julie. So welcome to the show, Julie. I'm excited to dig deeper into the topic. But before we do so, I always like to learn more about my guests and their backstory. What got you so excited about nutrition and then focusing on brain health? So I'll let you share that story.
Thank you, Dr. Nathalie. So I am super excited to share this with you. And the backstory is, take myself 12 years ago, I was a mother of 3 young children under the age of 8. And there were a lot of health issues happening in my kids, and I didn't understand why. And they were not going away. Like severe eczema all over one of my child's body, severe constipation, where we were seeing specialists like consistently for this. And my oldest daughter even developed a autoimmune condition called lichen sclerosis, which is something that normally older women will get. Very rarely do children get this. So I was very concerned. And I was also blessed with 3 very intense children. So tantrums was a daily thing. And as for myself, I've always experienced anxiety. I've always struggled with that, and also very important mood swings throughout my life. So as a normal mother these days, what did I do? I Googled for some solutions. I was looking for some answers, and I've always been inclined towards alternative health. So I was looking for something more natural. And first thing I did, started looking at the food we were eating. With trial and error, we removed a lot of the foods. And eventually, when we got it right, the symptoms went away. Like there was no more eczema. Even the autoimmune condition of lichen sclerosis, which is supposed to be a lifelong condition because it's autoimmune, symptoms went away. So right now, until now, she's 19 years old and there are still no symptoms. So, and then even the tantrums were milder. They were not as frequent. And I was feeling so much calmer and more in control of my moods. So that's when I decided that's it. I was hooked, and I went back to school in my mid-40s. I got my certification as a holistic nutritionist, and then I went to specialize as a brain health coach because my passion, and I think my mission, is really connecting nutrition to our mental health. So that's my backstory.
It's happened so often that people really start finding, whoops, excuse me. All right, so a little bit of a power outage here, so let's jump back right in. There's nothing like, jumping in and getting our feet wet with a show going live and having some technical issues. So thank you so much for sharing that backstory, Julie. So before we dig deeper into issues with brain, I think it's important that we talk about what are the signs and symptoms. So sign obviously can be, brain fog, hard to concentrate, memory issue, and so forth. And then diagnoses are more the symptoms. So we're talking about depression, anxiety, dementia, and Alzheimer's. So those are all signs that our brain are not working properly. And I love what you said earlier, because I think by focusing on our overall health, we can really make a big difference with our brain. I was just saying that to a patient earlier today. It's like we can't disconnect our head from the rest of our body. So I think it's crucial. So let's look at a few statistics. It's quite shocking, actually. Depression, according to the World Health Organization, depression affects more than 264 million people of all ages globally. That's pretty staggering. Anxiety, again, the World Health Organization, 1 in 13 people has anxiety. So that's 7.3% of the population. And with dementia and Alzheimer, really the stats are also quite elevated, with 50 million people worldwide who are living with dementia in 2020, with nearly 10 million new cases every year. And then Alzheimer's disease, which is a really tender topic for me, because my mom passed away of Alzheimer's 2 years ago. So brain has been on the forefront of my mind to see what I personally can do and help others with that. So we're looking at 5.8 million Americans who are living with Alzheimer's disease, and it's expected to rise at 14 million by 2050. So it really is, staggering statistic. So, Julie, when you talk about brain health, I heard you in the past say that you want people to fall back in love with their brain. So what do you mean by that?
Well, basically, when we realize that someone is important to us, important to to our happiness, that's when we realize that we're like sometimes in love with that person, or we love that person, right? It's the same thing with the brain. When we realize to what extent our brain is important to our happiness and to our success, that's when I want people to fall in love with their brains. Because when your brain works right, you work right. Dr. Amen is a brain health expert known worldwide. And he's got this saying, brains rule the world. They rule billion-dollar corporations. They rule our governments. Unfortunately, they're not doing a very good job these days. They're ruling churches and hospitals and our school systems, our families. Your brain determines everything you do. Your brain is responsible for your thoughts, for your feelings, for learning, for strategizing, for creating, for loving, everything. So that's when people realize that, that's when they fall in love with their brain and they make healthier and better choices for themselves.
Cool. So let's dig deeper into how the brain works, and let's talk about the neurotransmitter. And it's a fancy word, but it's just those molecules that make us who we are and activate our brains in different ways. So I'll let you dig deeper into explaining how the brain works.
Well, basically, every second we're alive, there are billions of neurons that connect to each other, that are activated, and that work really hard to keep us healthy and alive. And when two neurons connect, there's like this little space that's called the synapse. And in that little space, there, among all the activities that are going on, there's also an exchange of neurotransmitters, what I like to call our feel-good chemicals. Okay. And these feel-good chemicals and neurotransmitters are responsible for how we show up every day, for how we feel, for our emotions. So I don't know if you wanted me to talk about where did it come from? Okay.
Where did it come from? Exactly. Because it comes from our food, doesn't it?
It does. It does. So the neurotransmitters basically are the building blocks are amino acids for the most part. And amino acids, where do we get it? We get it from the food that we eat for the most part, and especially protein. So when you eat protein, you're breaking it down in your stomach, and then it breaks down into amino acids. And those amino acids are the building blocks for your neurotransmitters. Same thing for healthy fats. When you eat healthy fats, you're breaking it down into essential fatty acids, among all sorts of things. And those essential fatty acids are used as building blocks for our receptor sites. So in that little synapsules, neurotransmitters are connecting to these receptor sites. And those receptor sites also need to be healthy. So that's where you see how what we eat really does impact how we feel. And let's not forget, even the brain is made up to 60 to 70% fat. So we need fat for a healthy brain. And unfortunately, the older generation was brainwashed with the idea that fat is unhealthy, that we should be avoiding it. And it's not true. People need to understand that we need healthy fats. And your brain actually uses up 20 to 25% of your energy expenditure every single day. That's a lot for one organ. So you want to make sure that you're fueling it with really quality food. Mm-hmm.
And talking about fuel, let's talk about, glucose and ketones, which are two different types of fuel that the brain can use.
Yes. So glucose is a primary source of fuel that our body and brain uses because it's readily available pretty much all the time, unless we're not, we're starving or we're fasting. So glucose is readily available. The only thing is that often it can create highs and lows in blood sugar if we're not careful. Ketones is another source of fuel that is available under certain circumstances. So it's, when the fats that we eat are broken down, and one of the byproducts of these fats are ketones, and we can only access ketones in certain situations. For example, the ketogenic diet, which a lot of us have heard about. The ketogenic diet is simply put, it's a low carb diet with loads of fat. So you're eating lots of fat and you're really reducing your carbohydrates. So what happens is your body is looking for the glucose. It can't find the glucose, so it goes and gets the ketones and it uses that. And ketones are much more stable in terms of fuel. Like it doesn't produce the highs and lows in blood sugar like glucose does. So that's one of the huge advantages. So you can access ketones when you're doing a keto diet. You can access ketones if you're intermittent fasting, which is at least 16 hours of fasting, or again, even intense endurance exercise, at least 60 minutes and above. You can also access ketones that way. So there's different ways, and there's a lot of benefits with ketones. You can lose weight. It's a great way to lose weight. It also, mental clarity and energy is incredible. What else? Also, just balance moods. It helps to balance your
and I
moods.
know in the functional medicine world, it's used quite a bit, especially with people that have metabolic issues and to do a reset with their body so that they can use better fuel. So, all right, so let's talk about some strategies here. Let's get a little bit practical. So let's talk about the food that we should avoid to be good to our feel-good hormones, which are, the serotonin, the GABA, to calm us down because it's huge for anxiety. And then dopamine, another big one that I think everyone's heard about now with social media. We say, getting your dopamine hit every time that we log on. We can talk about that further. But what kind of food should we be looking to avoid, Julie?
Basically, processed foods. So what are
Mm-hmm.
processed foods? Anything that's packaged, anything that has been manufactured, that has a list of ingredients that we have no idea what they are, or just list of ingredients in general. The processed foods are often, they lack color. Think of like boxed cereals, for example, or pasta. They're high in calorie. They're often deep fried and they're full of chemicals. So a lot of the ingredients that we often find in processed foods are vegetable oils like canola oil, safflower, sunflower oil, all the pesticides, the herbicides, and all that as well. We can't control what we're consuming in terms of chemicals when we're eating processed foods. It's all there. Coloring, unfortunately, is a huge one. And sugar, and it's hidden sugar. So these are all things that we want to be avoiding to protect our brain health. So sugar is a huge one, just by the way. It's not a bad thing because when it's broken down into glucose. But we're eating too much of it. That's the problem. And that's creating the highs and the lows in blood sugar, which is creating chaos in our brain. So
chaos and addiction, right? Because they put
yes.
sugar into like chips or things that you wouldn't think that there's even sugar into this to make us addicted. It's quite the thing. Now, I've mentioned in the introduction the importance of the gut. So let's talk about the importance of the gut when it comes to brain health. I'll let you explain a little bit, and this is something that my training as a chiropractor, the gut-brain barrier and the vagus nerve is very top of mind for us. But explain why the gut is so important.
Well, simply put, the gut is your second brain. Why? Because we produce most of our neurotransmitters inside our gut. So if our gut is unhealthy, we're compromising our ability to build those neurotransmitters, which is impacting our mental health. So that's the main reason why your gut is really, really important to your brain health. And I don't know if you wanted me to talk about the leaky gut. Is that something that?
Sure. Yeah.
So leaky gut is something a lot of us hear about, right? And it's more and more common. To understand what a leaky gut is, I always like to mention the two functions of the digestive system. Like there's one where it's protecting us from these big molecules that aren't properly digested, or strange molecules, toxins that shouldn't be going into our bloodstream. And it's protecting us by this thin wall of cells. It's only one layer thick. So it really is quite thin. But then it's also the other function it has is that it's allowing all these small molecules that we need as nutrients to feed our cells and our brain and all the tissues and organs. It allows these small molecules to enter the bloodstream through this wall of cells. When we have a leaky gut, it means that this wall of cells is compromised or it's inflamed. And then the tight junction between the cells, there's like a gap that happens. And then these molecules that aren't supposed to be going into our bloodstream, they start going into our bloodstream and invading our, parts of our bodies that where they shouldn't belong. And then there's an immune response. And that's where we find food intolerances and all these other issues that happen because of a leaky gut. And a lot people wonder, well, how does that happen? How do we get a leaky gut? These days, chronic stress is a huge one. Chronic stress is huge. Environmental toxins, antibiotics, over-the-counter medication, it's just poor food choices. All of this will impact the health of our digestive system and will create these other issues afterwards.
And impacting the brain, as I mentioned, the vagus nerve being the longest nerve of the body, right? That starts cranial nerve 10 that goes from the brain right down to the gut. And it secretes what's called acetylcholine and activates the parasympathetic system, which is our rest and digest system. So it's that brain, gut-brain barrier and the connection and leaky gut. We also have heard the term leaky brain as well. So really, we're just going to take a moment for a short break, and we'll come back now that we've talked about the foods that we shouldn't be eating. Let's talk about the food that we should be eating.
Welcome to Dr. Nathalie's 7-Day Hack Your Health Challenge. Transform your fitness level with 7 quick, do them from anywhere workouts. Look and feel great. Nutrition. Master the art of optimizing your diet and maximizing nutrient intake with daily nutrition challenges. Biohacking. Unlock exclusive content to tap into your body's innate wisdom. Take on challenges to optimize your mindset and physiology. Ready to transform your health? Visit www.drnat.life to join Dr. Nathalie's 7-Day Hack Your Health Challenge. Your journey begins now.
And we're back with Julie Gervais, our holistic nutritionist, discussing brain health. So Julie, we left talking about the food we should avoid. Let's talk about food that we should focus on.
Well, whole foods. Really, that's as simple as it gets. Any food that has once flown, that once swam, ran, or that grew in nature is what we call whole foods. So these are foods that are often rich in the colors of the rainbow. That's what I like to tell my clients. So, and there's no labels, there's no packaging involved. Okay. And what do we find in whole foods that we need so badly for our brain health? The proteins, the healthy fats, and the carbohydrates. So these are the macronutrients that we say, and this is the basic, macronutrients that we need for a healthy brain, honestly.
Yeah, we made it complicated, right, with processed food. And yet, I always say, my grandparents had a farm, they probably opened the door and then just went in the garden and then, used whatever animal they had on premise to feed the family. So I think we try to make it more available and easy to have access to food, but we went the other way to complicate it for our own health, for sure. Another thing too that is often mentioned in studies are the polyphenols that are contained in in the food. So we're talking about, the blueberries, the cherries, the broccoli, the spinach, and even dark chocolate. I'm a big fan of dark chocolate as well. So those polyphenols are really good antioxidants, and they're really good for our brain as well. And going back to the gut, where we were just discussing, is that those polyphenols need to be metabolized in the gut by the microbiome to be activated properly. So again, what are the importance of having, a healthy gut? So talking about the neurotransmitters, we're not going to go too much in detail, but I think it's important that people understand that we have neurotransmitters that are excitatory, right? They, make us like epinephrine or noradrenaline and so forth. And then we have one that are there to calm us. And GABA, which is one that maybe some people have heard about and is needed for us to really help combat anxiety. So food high in, you talked about amino acid earlier, glutamine. Glutamine is transformed into glutamate, which will be transferred into GABA. And glutamine-rich foods are animal protein, beans, spinach, and so forth. And some people can even take L-glutamine supplement, right? I'm sure, Julie, you probably suggest that to your patients sometime to heal the gut lining that we were talking about, right? Now we can't talk about all this without talking about blood sugar. You mentioned it a little bit earlier, but Julie, explain to people why controlling your blood sugar is so crucial and what they can do to do so.
Well, we want to be controlling our blood sugar because the highs, when we eat a lot of sugar or any carbohydrates that turns into glucose, and we're not balancing it with protein and healthy fats, and we're creating this high in blood sugar, and then it's followed by a drop in blood sugar. And when there's a drop, a lot of the times, a lot of people will experience what we call hypoglycemic episodes, which are simply when your blood sugar is really, really low. Just think of a child when they're coming home from school and they haven't eaten all day, or they just didn't eat right. And they're coming home and they're doing like either tantrums, or they can't focus or not listening. You don't want to be giving them sugar or cookies or crackers. You want to be giving them protein and healthy fats so you can help balance that blood sugar. So the brain really doesn't like when we're creating that roller coaster ride of blood sugar. We want to stabilize it as much as possible. And that is why whole foods are so important, because when you're eating whole foods, you can control what's in your plate. For example, protein really helps to slow down the absorption of sugar in your bloodstream. So it helps to balance that blood sugar. Same thing with healthy fats. When we're combining, it really helps to balance the blood sugar. So you want to be, as much as possible, balancing that blood sugar for balanced moods. That's what I always tell my clients, balance your blood sugar, you're going to have balanced moods. And how do you do that? It's with those macronutrients that I mentioned earlier: protein, healthy fats, and the complex carbohydrates. And I didn't really explain earlier, where do you get those? Like, what kind of sources? Like healthy fats, I'll give you examples: avocado, olives, nuts and seeds. We've got like fish oil, algae. You've got also even grass-fed, pastured-raised animal meat will have healthy fats in them, like those omega-3s that we really want for our brain health, because our body doesn't produce them. So we need to get those omega-3s from the food that we eat. Protein, good sources of protein would be like pastured raised animals, once again, pastured raised beef and chicken and pork, grass-fed butter, coconut oil, organic dairy. These are all good sources of protein. You've got also nuts and seeds, even protein in green leafy vegetables. You'll find some protein in there. Lentils, legumes, beans, all good sources. As for complex carbohydrates, good sources, fruits and vegetables, right? We want to be increasing those green leafy vegetables. Why? And when I talk about carbohydrates, I talk about complex carbohydrates because they're filled with fiber. And the
Sure.
fiber really helps with balancing that blood sugar. Really, really helps with that. So you want foods that are really rich in fiber, and you'll get that from the fruits and vegetables, legumes, and beans, nuts and seeds also.
Yeah. So to go back to the blood sugar, I'm sure you've heard that before, that type 3 diabetes with dementia, right? So it has such a big impact on the brain. So
Yeah.
now, Julie, let's switch gear and talk about supplements. What are your go-to supplements that you use? I know I have some of my favorites, but you start with your top three, I believe.
My top three are omega 3, number one. Why? Because our brain, our bodies don't produce them, and we're not getting enough of them. And our brain thrives on omega 3s. And they're also in the anti-inflammatory, which is fantastic for anybody, who has inflammation, for just arthritis, for example. I know that it does wonders for that for some people. Vitamin D is another go-to for me because we all know, well, most of us understand that vitamin D does support our immune system. We often hear that, take some vitamin D supplements in the winter when there's not as much sunshine out there. But also there's also a lot of vitamin D receptor sites inside our brain, which indicates that vitamin D is really important for brain health, or else those receptor sites wouldn't be there. It's involved in the synthesis of neurotransmitters. So vitamin D is super important for that, and mood regulation as well, and many other reasons. My third go-to supplement would be a B complex. B vitamins, because simply they are critical for brain health. Any deficiency in B vitamins can lead to cognitive decline, to neurological disorders. They're great for anxiety. They often will help someone feel much calmer, and they can also help with sleep. Now, some people react differently to vitamin D. Some people, it gives them a lot of energy, and you wouldn't want to take that before going to sleep. So we're all biochemically different. So we need to see, how it feels for us. But vitamin D is definitely one of my top three.
Oh, that's good. So in my latest book called Smart Cut Hack, your health for longevity, and which I think you got a copy of now, we talked about choline for the brain, and it's found in egg yolks. And so, I mean, we've been told to not eat eggs and egg yolks for the cholesterol and so forth. And yet, like you said, the brain is made out of a huge amount of fat, and choline is important for brain function. Another one, phosphatidylserine, which is part of the cell membrane. And this is a supplement that I take as well, especially at night, to kind of curb my cortisol. And then another one that's really more recent. Well, I mean, the supplement itself is not creatine. And back in the days, I used to compete in natural bodybuilding, and we were taking creatine. But now research is showing that it's really good for the brain. There's more and more research, especially with people that have head injuries and concussion, things like that, because it really helps at a cellular level and helps the body produce better cellular energy. Other supplements that are kind of favorite of mine is resveratrol, curcumin, that also helps with inflammation. Quercetin is also good. There's a whole bunch of supplement that can help with brain inflammation, and also some nootropic like ginkgo biloba. I think a lot of people are aware of that. A supplement, rhodiola and Bacopa monniaris. All complicated name, but what I like with a lot of brands, and they have a formulation that encompass. I myself take a brain support, and it encompasses a lot of those supplements, because it can get tedious, can it, for people to take supplements? So it's nice when you have formulas. So, with my own patient, I always say we need to cover our bases. So the fish oil, the vitamin D, even the probiotics, and then we have to customize to our needs. Where are we maybe not the right word is not lacking, but where are we not as optimal, and which system needs more support. So those, I find those supplements that come, with a formula are really good. And then lastly, you said in a prior conversation that you've used ketones as well yourself. I have, and they can be quite great to get into ketosis. If you're not following a ketogenic diet, I know that I personally use them before my workouts, and not all the time, but it's a good source of energy. There's ketone ester and ketone salt. They differ in price, and they can be a little bit expensive. But again, if somebody is focusing on performance, it might be a really good tool. And if they're trying to focus on metabolic health and stabilizing their blood sugar and so forth, from a therapeutic point of view, I know a lot of functional medicine doctor will start their patient on a more ketogenic diet and use ketones to help support. Have you worked with that with some of your clients?
Yes, some of them, but honestly, because I work mostly with families, and they tend to not. I've mentioned it even like for ADD. It can be fabulous for symptoms of ADD. So yeah, I know that when I was on keto, like mental clarity was like top. I had never experienced mental clarity like when I'm on ketones. Yeah.
So something for the viewer and the listener to think about, that there are some amazing tools out there to help support, and it's kind of biohack our own physiology in a healthy way, obviously, but it's just there are tools that we can leverage. So Julie, let's kind of recap what we talked about with the 5 things that people can do that are not expensive, and they can really do to set the foundation when it comes to their brain health.
Okay. So the first thing I always tell my clients is always ask yourself when you've got a choice to make when it comes to your nutrition or your lifestyle, when it comes to, doing exercise or what time should I go to bed? Ask yourself, is this good for my brain or bad for my brain? I even ask myself this sometimes when I'm tempted, like, I see this donut, I'm going out with friends and they're having all these sweet things. And I'm like, oh, is this good for my brain or bad? I don't say it out loud, but it really does help me to make better choices for myself. Second thing is make sure you're drinking loads of water. Water. We are like, 80% water? Is that right?
75, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. So we need to be drinking lots of water. It really makes a difference also for even like brain health, for clarity, for focus. It's quite interesting when you compare someone who doesn't drink water, like my son doesn't drink very little water. And when I put him on a lot of water, he's just so much more patient and just more understanding. Another number 3 is eat protein-rich breakfast. Super important because you're starting your day with balanced blood sugar, and it's also giving you a lot of more energy. It's giving you their building blocks for your neurotransmitters. So, protein-rich breakfast. Number 4, make sure you're including healthy fats and protein every time you're eating. Like when you're eating, just combine those macronutrients. When you're grabbing an apple, make sure you're also grabbing that, almond butter or some cheese on the side. And number 5, prioritize sleep, quality sleep. Like for brain health, I cannot overextend how important sleep is. I would almost say, it's as important, even more important than nutrition. Like if you're eating super well, but you have terrible sleep, it's going to create your brain's going to feel it, and you're going to age a lot faster too.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Making sleep a priority. I compare it to a computer, right? Like it's our brain is defragging, and recharging and cleaning or cleansing itself at night. So we need sleep. And I think, if I could add 1 to yours, 5, exercise, right?
Oh,
because
yes.
we exercise, we make this BDNF, the brain derived neurotrophic factor. It is so huge. And I think I was reading something not too long ago that pretty much confirmed that exercise, for depression and anxiety was as good as a lot of the medication taken for that. So we can't really underestimate the power of that. And then, to conclude also, and I mentioned it with, talking about dopamine hit earlier, I think we have to be careful to not be obsessed by our phone and, just always constantly looking for that dopamine hit with that it is who listened or who liked your post or anything like this. And I think, it used to be maybe teenagers that did that, but now it's everyone. Like, we're constantly so hooked to those devices. So I think it's important that we are cognition of that, even with exercise, right? Dr. Andrew Huberman was giving the example of working out with music, but not all the time. I love working out with music. It gets me going. It pumps me up. I love it. But on purpose, sometimes I don't put my music because all of those are dopamine hit in different ways, and we don't want to get our body used to them because then it's not going to work properly, right? So I think it's important that we disconnect nature, grounding, getting out there. I think it's super important. Actually, talking about getting out there, my next segment that I'm going to talk about is going to be how light affects us. So, Julie, thank you so much for your time, your expertise. I hope that people got some good nuggets that they can implement. And some of the stuff we talked about doesn't cost anything. It's just a matter of changing our mindset and the way we look at things. And I'm going to remember that too. Is this food good for my brain? I love how you're saying it. I love how you're putting it. So thank you so much, Julie. It was a pleasure chatting with you, and thank you for sharing your expertise.
Thank you for having me. It was really nice being here.
Thank you. So we're going to go to a quick break, and when we will come back, I will talk about the effect of light on our health.
In today's world, the flood of health information feels endless. But amidst the noise, two experts with over 50 years of combined clinical experience come together to help you with Smart Cuts, biohack your health span, cutting-edge protocols for greater energy and performance. Dr. Paul Sly, a beacon for athletes, weekend warriors, and those seeking to elevate their potential. And Dr. Nathalie Beauchamp, renowned for empowering individuals in their health journeys. Together, they've produced the book, Smart Cuts, Biohack Your Health Span, a protocol-based treasure trove packed with actionable steps. Journey through 5 transformative sections. Dive into sleep, hydration, movement, brain health, and even the secrets of longevity. Guided by their expert hands, unleash the best version of yourself. With over half a century of clinical wisdom and innovative protocols, reclaim your health and redefine your limits. Are you ready to embark on this transformative journey? Smart Cuts, available now.
All right, so welcome back to the segment on how light affects us and the benefit of red light therapy. So I want this to be practical and hopefully give you tools and strategies that you can implement into your daily life. So how does light affect us? Well, first, there are 3 pathways that light will affect us. The first one is through our vision. So when light enters the eye, it hits the retina and hits the photoreceptor and send electrical signal. The light is transformed into electrical signal, and those signals travel to our optic nerve, and then it triggers us to be able to see images. The second pathway is the how the body uses non-visual pathways. So this one is more a physiological response, and it triggers hormone like serotonin or melatonin, which are really important in the circadian cycle, which I'll talk a little bit more in detail. But basically, the light trigger or stimulate the melanocytin receptor in the retina, and then will trigger those hormones as well. And the third pathway to this is through what's called photobiomodulation. It's a mouthful. It's also called biophotomodulation as well, but it is the process of photosynthesis. So we're not far off from plants, because just like plants, we need to be exposed to the sun. And this is when we can synthesize vitamin D. And vitamin D can help stimulate energy and the production of energy into our system. And then the effect of our skin being exposed is activating molecule on the skin called opsin. And this is also what's sometimes referred as the eyes of our skin. So the photon from the sun are hitting our skin, and then the biomodulation occurs. So it's pretty interesting to see how it all works. So what does it mean, and why it's important? Well, I mentioned earlier, we have what's called a circadian rhythm in human, and it's as you can see with the visual here, that depending if it's light or if it's dark, we will be activating different things in the body. So when I say things, I mean hormones like melatonin and cortisol. So for each of the 24-hour cycle, there are certain things that will be happening. For instance, at 10 a.m., highest alertness. At noon, when there's more light or past, best coordination. Fastest reaction time in the afternoon. So our bodies are peaking at certain time of the day, and it gets even more complicated than that sometime with the organs also that have specific time of the day when they are going to recharge. Now, this is a great visual here to show the opposite effect of melatonin and cortisol hormone. So as you can see, in the morning, melatonin is low and cortisol is high. And the cortisol is what wakes us up in the morning. This is what is going to make us get out of bed. But as the day progresses, our cortisol decreases and our melatonin will increase. And those two hormones have to be in sync all the time. And on the right side is a graph of cortisol that's taken in the morning, at lunch, in the afternoon, and then in the evening. And you can see the graph quite nicely being in the green zone. And what often happens with stress, our adrenal glands, which produce the cortisol that I'm talking about, might be peaking at the wrong time. And a tail sign of that is often with people waking up in the middle of the night at 2 o'clock, kind of ready to go, and it is 2 o'clock in the morning. It's because their cortisol is peaking at the wrong time. It should be peaking later on during the day. There's maybe a bit more to this in terms of blood sugar regulation as well, but that's why the cortisol will get increased, is the body wants to release glucose in our bloodstream, so activating the glucocorticoid. So very important to have those hormones in check. Now let's talk a little bit more about the light spectrum. So I find this picture to be very visual with the colors. So let's talk about the different types of light. So I think, as you can see here, when you see the blue and the green and the yellow and the red, those are visible to our eyes. But before that, in terms of waves, we have the gamma rays, the X-rays, and then the UV rays. And then after the visible light, we have the infrared light, and then the radio wave, or radar, TV, FM, and so forth. So we're going to focus a little bit on the UV, because I think it's important to understand. Most people are familiar with UVA and UVB, UVA being longer wave and is often associated with premature skin aging, and UVB are more known for the synthesis of the vitamin D. And that's why it's important that we expose our skin to the sun. Now, I'm not saying to not be conscious of having safe practices when it comes to skin exposure, but I think we have become paranoid of being exposed to the sun, and we need it. We need that skin exposure for us to produce our vitamin D. And then if we look at the blue light, I think some people will be also aware of blue light because it's more of a topic of conversation now in terms of, computers and blue light affecting us. But blue light obviously is visible, and it's at 440 and to 495 nanometer. And guess what? We need the blue light in the morning. This is what's going to trigger the melanopsin receptors, and this is what is going to help with the circadian rhythm. So that's why in the morning it's really important to, if you can, go outside, get some sun in your eyes. With going outside in the sun, you're going to get not just the blue light, but you're going to activate the blue light to trigger your circadian cycle, and so it works optimally. Then there's the green, there's the yellow, and so forth. But then there's the red light, and it is at 620 to 750 nanometer, and this is a kind to, as I mentioned, the sun, but also candlelight and firelight, and that's why in the evening we need the light during the day, but in the evening we should not be exposing ourselves to bright light. Because it does disturb, it can really potentially disturb our sleep. And then if we look at the infrared, which is something that our eyes don't see, we have both near infrared and far infrared. So near is from 750 to 1200, and far infrared is 1500 to up to 10,000. So both near infrared and far infrared both work on the mitochondria. What is the mitochondria? It's the energy center of our cell. So they can really help at a cellular level to create more efficiency with our energy system. Lots of people are probably familiar with far infrared sauna. There are also some near infrared sauna. And like I said, they both have kind of different purpose. The far infrared will also affect more metabolic processes. It will also affect detoxification as well. So as you can see, we do need to see the full spectrum of light. It is good for us. And then lastly here, I mentioned earlier, red light therapy, or what's called low-level light therapy. This is actually a picture of the unit that I have at home. So I have this panel that I sit in front for 10 minutes or even a tad longer every day. And this works deep at the mitochondria level. It helps with the lymphatic system. It helps with blood flow. It can even boost collagen. So that's going to be good for skin, for joint, for digestive health. And it also can really have a big impact on inflammation as well. It also is known to reduce oxidative stress. So for some of you that are not familiar with red light and infrared light, this is an amazing tool that can be leveraged for a lot of different conditions and activate our body energy system in a good way. Now, another thing that we have to mention is the dirty light and the effect on the body. And when I talk about dirty electricity, I'm talking, unfortunately, about the artificial light, the LED light. And one of the big thing is the flicker. So the flicker can really affect us, and there's people that are more sensitive than others. Now, computers screen can come with a lower amount of flicker. You can purchase light bulbs that have less flicker. And that's why it's important to, make sure that your cognition of your home and the tools that you are using. Now, unfortunately, LED is energy efficient, but not so great for us. So it's kind of that balance between, saving in energy and what is affecting our own health. There are also software that we can put on our computer that will mitigate or decrease the flickering. So to recap on what we can do, 7 easy hacks to improve your relationship with light. Greet the sun, get out there in the morning. Not so easy right now where I live and in the winter, but still, let's get outside as much as we can, especially in the morning, so we get our circadian cycle triggered properly. Soak up some rays. As I mentioned, it is important to get some vitamin D, so as much as we can expose our skin in a reasonable and safe way, of course. Choosing our light bulb wisely. Again, energy versus what's good for our health. Incandescent and halogen over LED, actually, because of the flickering and the intensity. But if you are going to do the LED, make sure you choose what's called more of a warm white, because it's at a frequency that's a little bit less damaging. Ease your eyes. Make sure that your cognition of the flickering, and then block the late day blues. And I think it's important that we understand that we don't want to put those blue light glasses in the morning, because we do need, even on days that it's not sunny, I'll fire up as many light as possible because I want to get the light into my eyes. And then in the evening, we want to wear those orange tinted or red tinted glasses, especially if we're going to watch TV, because again, it's a lot of light into our eyes. And I think also it's important to consider red light therapy. I know that I personally have a unit that I use at home, but in the clinic as well, I have a device that is a 3B class red light and infrared light therapy, and patients are really seeing a huge difference when it comes to arthritis and inflammation and so forth. So hopefully these hacks are helpful to you. And I think it's something that we need to start paying more attention. And it's not easy. And that means in the evening, you need to really tune down or turn off your lights and focus on, having the right type. And I'll show you here. So this is blue light glasses that if I am at the computer in the afternoon, I will be using. And then these are what's called orange glasses, again mimicking the sunset and the sundown, and those are red light glasses. So those are a little bit interesting in terms of getting used to using them. It takes a little bit of practice as well. And this here is also incandescent red light that I use in the bedroom and in the family room in the evening. So it gives it this nice red feeling, kind of like the fireplace kind of feeling. So hopefully you're going to pay attention a little bit more to light, and remember to get out in the morning as much as you can. And for people that do wear glasses, make sure that you remove your glasses. Obviously, you don't want to be staring at the sun and harm your eyes, but at least gaze to get some of the rays. So I think it's important to do so. So Thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you enjoy our guest, Julie, where she talked about nutrition and the brain. And also, hopefully, you found a segment on light and especially red light. There's tons of information out there. My goal with this show is to bring you awareness on topics that maybe you didn't know about and that you can do your own digging and researching and do your own critical thinking and analyze what is something that you can integrate in your life. And lastly, I think it's important that we don't feel overwhelmed. So maybe you learned a whole bunch of things in the show today, but pick one thing that you can implement basically today, because if we do too many, we're not giving it time to form a habit, and we can get discouraged. And because oftentimes when we try to change too many things at the same time, we don't succeed, and it's not good. So thank you very much for tuning in to the show Hack Your Health with Dr. Nat. It was a pleasure to spend the hour with you, and hopefully this has inspired you to focus even more so on your health. Thank you, and until next time.
This has been Hack Your Health with Dr. Nat. Tune in each week and uncover simple yet powerful strategies and actionable steps to elevate your health and wellness.